very good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all after lunch. I believe we had a good lunch and our energy is और ज़्यादा हो गई है. So I must tell you, this is the last session, and the session theme is mental health and holistic well-being. And I must tell you, we have a very eminent two speakers for this session. Professor Balaganpati ji, he is from Delhi University, and a very honorable Dr. Basavaraddi sir. So first we have Professor Balaganpati ji. Sir, we are very honored that you spare time for the conference and for your talk. Professor Balaganpati ji is a professor in the Department of Philosophy in Delhi University, and he is former head of philosophy in Delhi University, and sir has a number of publications. He has authored number of books, and he actually is a personality who has inspired students, and he also joined us in our one of our program in Shoolini. So we know that this session will definitely be a very learning and good session, I believe. So not wasting the much time, I request Professor Balaganpati sir to kindly take over the session. Over to you, Bala sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Prerna, for that kind introduction. Namaste, Sabhaya Namaha. Professor P.K. Khosla Sahab and Mr. Atreji, and today's my co-panelist, Dr. Basavaraddi ji, a very good friend of mine, and other guests, invitees who have joined us today. It's an honor for me to be a part of this wonderful congregation, which is discussing a very important aspect on spirituality. In fact, I feel very proud and also glad to be a part of this Shoolini family. I had an opportunity a few months back to visit the campus and see the way the campus has come out under the leadership of Professor Khosla Sahab, and I really appreciate his efforts. And also, most importantly, from my side as a teacher, as a student of philosophy, starting this Center for Theology, because I think if we look at it from a secular perspective, I think this is the only university in India which has a Center for Theology devoted completely with an academic orientation. So that is how I really appreciate the efforts of the organizers, and especially Professor Khosla Sahab. It was a privilege to listen to Swami Ishwaranand ji and also Swami Anupamanand ji and Dr. Eka Chaturvedi Banerjee ji and Dr. Janaki and Dr. Sukant Chaudhary ji during the course of deliberations that happened in the morning. Let me quickly come to I understand that I have only 20 minutes time, so let me try to quickly come to the theme that I have chosen. Before that, I would like to say a few things about the theme of the conference itself. So my talk is basically divided into three parts. In the first part, I would be talking about science of spirituality. And in the second part, I would be talking specifically about the theme of this particular session, mental health and holistic well-being. And in the third part of my talk, I would be talking about the practice of spirituality, whether it is possible or not. So let me begin with the first one, like the theme of the conference itself: learning, teaching, educational research on science of spirituality. So when we listen to this theme, obviously one of the major concerns that most of us may have, especially the students who have joined us today from Shoolini University, may also have this concern that how is spirituality a science? And in this regard, all of us are benefited by the deliberations that happened in the morning, especially the way Professor Sukanta Chaudhary has interrogated the possibility of or understanding the spirituality independent of religion, and also by Aika Banerjee, who has wonderfully explained the process of the development of science itself with its various diversities, and then how all of them lead to a common goal called spirituality. That was a wonderful transition that she has explained very well, and I'm much benefited by these two talks that went on in the morning. But I thought I should also add my own thoughts to the discussion that is happening, so that the students and the audience can also have an informed reasoning, to conceptualize their own understanding of science of spirituality. So the first question that comes forward, friends, is spirituality a science? Most of us, some of us may think that it is not a science at all. And some of us at least may think that it is a science. So if it is not a science, if people think it is not a science, then there is no problem at all with them. But if we think that it is a science, then the second question that comes forward is, in what sense? In what sense are you calling spirituality a science, right? And in this regard, we have to remember the talk that Swamiji has given in the morning, which tried to wonderfully explain the difference between inward journey and outward journey. Okay, so I'll come to that point later. But if we are considering spirituality to be a science, then it is our responsibility to explain in what sense we are calling it a science. When I'm saying this, what I have in my mind is, when we look at the contemporary education system that we have now, okay, which has divided human knowledge, teaching of the human knowledge for the sake of teaching into various groups of disciplines in terms of humanities, social sciences, and sciences. And these sciences again are divided into experimental sciences and then formal sciences. Okay, so what is this difference between experimental sciences and formal sciences? In the experimental sciences, we understand that when we are trying to reach out to the reality or a particular aspect of the reality, we understand that if we try to experiment with that in the outside world, we will not be able to capture its real essence. So we will take it into a controlled system called laboratory, and then we experiment on that to understand the real nature of that. This is what happens in experimental sciences. So some of you may be into experimental sciences, so you understand it in a better way. I'm only speaking about it in a broader perspective. So this is what is happening now. Okay, that group is called, that branch is called experimental sciences. Whether you're talking about chemistry, physics, biology, botany, all these are part of these experimental sciences. Then you also have another group, very fundamental and very important group called formal sciences, where we talk about, we don't have anything to experiment in the laboratory, but we still call them science because they are formal in nature, like mathematics and geometry, or formal sciences, where principles are very important. Rules and regulations and principles are very important. Through them, we move from axioms to theorems and then to application of them. So these are the two groups of course, you can further divide them into natural, physical, etc. But the broader division is in terms of experimental sciences and formal sciences. And then you have social sciences, which are based on the social systems or artificial systems that we have developed for the sake of common living togetherness. Okay, so if this is the case, where do we place spirituality? Do we place spirituality in any of these laboratory experimental sciences, or in formal sciences, or where do we place them? In that particular sense, what I'm asking here is, are we dividing, or are we calling spirituality as science in the modern Western sense of the term? Okay, so the term science that we use now in the academia, Anglophone academia, English-speaking academia, Unfortunately, all of us are part of this. Are we, the term science, as we use it in English-speaking academia, is borrowed from modern Western sense of it. Okay, so are we calling spirituality, when we say spirituality is science, are we bringing that conception here and trying to call it? That is number one. Number two is there any way out, than understanding it that way? So this is a very important aspect for me, because is there any other sense in which even modern Western science did not reach at, that we are trying to attribute to spirituality when we are talking about science? So this is what takes us to go back to our own tradition, classical Indian tradition, and ask us what is the word that was used for science there, when in the cultural sense, in the intellectual sense of Indian classical tradition. The term that we find is Shastra, but again, the problem is, do we translate Shastra as science in the modern Western sense? I don't think so. So this is a very important aspect that we have to understand, friends. Whenever we are calling spirituality as science, we are only using it in the classical Western, classical Indian traditional sense, rather than modern Western scientific sense. So this distinction is to be clearly understood. Otherwise, we would be carried away by many things, because when I talk about modern Western scientific sense, it comes with a baggage. As people say, when we talk about classical Indian tradition, we come with a baggage. There may be something that is interesting, that is good, something that maybe there's something that is not known to us, and so that is threatening to us. So the baggage is would be full. In the similar way, even when we talk about modern Western science, it comes with certain kind of presuppositions, etc., which epistemologies and presuppositions, which are very important for us to know. Number one is it looks at the world. It is developed on the basis of Enlightenment period and modernity, which understand world, which developed their epistemology in terms of binaries. So the binary epistemology is very important with regard to modern Western science, which tries to tell us that the whole world is divided into two opposites. And if you want to understand one concept, you have to identify the opposite of that and understand the concept in terms of the absence of the opposite. So this is how the binary epistemology works. And that is how we understand that fire could be the opposite of air, and male could be opposite of female, kind of things. But in fact, when it comes to classical Indian tradition, it is not so. It says all of them, air, fire, water, ether, earth, all of them are basic fundamental elements, and they are complementary to each other. Only by being complementary, okay, whenever they come together, they produce something new. So if something new has to emerge into the world, then these elements, which are complementary to each other, have to come together. Only then a holistic conception evolves, which gives rise to something new to come into existence. Similarly, male and female are complementary. Only if they come together, then you have something new emerging. So they are called complementary in Indian tradition, whereas in the other traditions, they are called binaries, opposites. So what I'm trying to point out is, if you're talking about science and Shastra, these two are developed in terms of different epistemologies altogether. So that is how the terms are very important, though we loosely, for example, in the recent past, there is a wonderful book that has come in terms of untranslatables of Sanskrit, which tells us that you cannot translate many of these Sanskrit terms into English in a loose way and then use them only as the concepts as they developed in the Western world, which means you're completely misplacing your own understanding of your concepts. So this is a major challenge that we have. Of course, when I'm saying all this, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying the sanctity of some of the experiments that are happening in the recent past to in fact, validate the spiritual practices and the knowledge. Okay, so that is happening. MRI scans, etc., are being done on the people who are practicing spirituality to see the validity. But it is not to know the reality. It is only to validate something that is already established to be a knowledge. So there is an instrument which validates something, and there is an instrument which actually takes you to the knowledge. These two are two different ones, friends. And that is how the term science of spirituality is a very important one, which is to be well discussed and understood in the right sense. So that's what I thought I should clarify in the beginning itself. And this is where I was referring to Swamiji's distinction between inward and outward. The science, the modern Western science that we are looking at, actually asks us to look at the world outside, okay, and then understand the outside world. How do you understand the outside world, and how do you use it for your own purposes? This is how it moves forward, okay. So that is how the instruments of knowing the external world, the instruments of understanding the external world and conceptualizing them are one kind of important ones. But there is another side of it, which is inward journey. Indian tradition understands that everything, no, oneness of the whole universe is conceptualized, and that is what is spirituality basically. In order to arrive at this oneness, how do you do that? It is not by going outside, because when you go outside, you only see the diversity and distinctions in the world. And that is how you have to begin by understanding your own self. So that is how inward journey was stressed. And through this inward journey, you would be able to understand that you are non-different from everything else that exists around you. So that is how the both in the external journey, outward journey, and as well as in the inward journey, there is one common aspect that we have to understand, which plays a key role in both the domains. That is the mind. Mind is the one which is very important in the external knowledge as well as in the internal knowledge as well, because this is what facilitates the internal journey, and this is what facilitates the external knowledge by using the senses. So that is how mind is given very important place in both the domains. And the most important point to become spiritual is to focus on this mind and then channel it in a proper way, appropriate way. That's what Swamiji was telling us in the morning, that Vivekananda was able to grasp things very clearly and very well, because he channelized his consciousness, his awareness in such a way through his meditation from the childhood that he is able to control his mind. So he quoted his own Vivekananda statement saying that my mind goes where I want it to go. Okay, it's not that, because see, all of you are sitting in the hall. Probably some of you may be physically present here, and mentally you may be somewhere else, right? So in the similar way, now mind is the one which is very difficult to be controlled. But Vivekananda could focus his mind on what he wants to specifically look at. So that is the difference. That is how mind plays a very important role in acquiring the external knowledge and moving oneself into the inward direction. And that is how mind plays a significant role in this quest for spirituality, which is to be noted very well. And this is with regard to the science of spirituality that I thought I should say. And let me take to this. Let me go to the second aspect that I want to talk, which is on mental health and holistic well-being. And when it comes to this mental health and holistic well-being, friends, something that is very important and something that I'm working on in the recent past is philosophical health. people may laugh at me saying that what is philosophical health, because there is a biological health which we know. When we get some disease, we go to the doctor and to get the health by taking medicines and treatment, and that is biological health, we know that. And otherwise we go to psychiatrists saying that I have some psychological problems and then get them cured. If that is the case, what is this philosophical health, which looks to be a myth? But in order to bring you to that aspect, let me tell you something which is broader than just biological or psychological health, or which in fact plays a very significant role as a controlling system of this biological and psychological health as well. I'm not saying that psychological health is more important than biological health. And I'm also not saying that philosophical health is more important than biological or psychological health. But I'm saying philosophical health is also a very important aspect that we have to look at. So let me come to that point. For example, when we talk about human life, no? I'm talking about in the broadest terms, human life as such. Human life, whenever we talk about it, there are two things broadly that disturb us. One is, what is the goal of life? And the other one is, what is the meaning of life? I'm living, but is there any meaning to my life? Or what is the goal of my life that I have to achieve? All of us at one time or the other get disturbed by these two questions, and which are very important for us. And when we talk in general about the goal of human life, it is existence. Your own existence seems to be the goal of life, right? And it is not just your existence, because if you're alone, it is not going to be useful to you. You understand that there are other people as well. That is how your quest moves further to coexistence. Okay, you understand that there are other things as well with which you have to live, coexistence. And it is not just mere coexistence that is important to human life. What is very significant for human life is peaceful coexistence. This peaceful coexistence is very important concept, friends. It looks to be very simple, but it is not that simple in the sense that now in the contemporary world, we are not able to peacefully coexist with each other, within the family, within the society, within the state, within the world as well. And the world in the contemporary studies now, if you look at the global contemporary studies, what takes significant amount of research now is global peace. Okay, so peace is so important. It has become so important for the world now. But look at the Vedic tradition. They know the importance of peace then. Okay, that is how you have Shanti mantras attached in every Upanishad. Every Upanishad begins with a Shanti mantra. And even in the morning, people were reciting Shanti mantras, right? Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is so important. It is not even once, it is thrice stated in every mantra. So the importance that is given to peace, Shanti, is very important. The peaceful coexistence was stressed in the classical Indian tradition so profoundly that all of us have to take cognizance of that. And unless there is peace, there is no concept of well-being possible, because well-being is not just well-being of my own biological health. Well-being means I have to be with the other. I have to live with the other. Sometime back, since most of you are science students, let me talk about this important aspect. Sometime back, people thought we are autopoietic beings. Okay, autopoietic means we are independent beings, and we are self-generating, autonomous, and self-defined and predictable kind of beings. Okay, which means you can generate your own self. That is how human beings were understood to be autopoietic beings. But now this concept is completely rejected, and people started understanding humans to be symbiotic beings, which means symbiosis means collectively producing beings. It is not that you are able to produce your own self. You are able to produce your own self because of so many other things that are happening around you, which are contributing positively to your regeneration. So this dichotomy between autopoiesis and symbiosis is very important, especially the students who are into biology would understand the importance of this concept very well. And now that has become very prominent. You are not alone, you are with all. And it is not that individualism saying that no, I will live my own life will not help you much. No, you have to be with the other. You have to understand the importance of being related to the other. So this relational aspect was stressed very well, and this is what leads to the concept of the holistic well-being. In fact, coronavirus has told us the importance of holistic well-being very well. It is not that if you are healthy, it is sufficient. You have to see to it that your surroundings are also healthy. Only then your health is guaranteed. Your health is otherwise not guaranteed if your surroundings, if people around you are ill health or unhealthy. Okay, so this is a very important lesson that we have learned. And what is this concept of peace that I was referring to, which is at the core of philosophical health, is we all want to be real to our own selves, and also at the same time we want to be conscious of what is happening to us and what we are doing. And if you attribute your reality and consciousness to yourself, then it is understood that you would be happy in the life. Okay, these are basic three principles: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So coming together of Sat, Chit, and Ananda is what is peace, and that is how peaceful coexistence is possible according to classical Indian tradition. So let me just move to the third aspect and quickly try to conclude whatever I am trying to explain. How do, if we understand that there is something called philosophical health, yeah, with regard to this philosophical health, what I would suggest is it has to be understood something like this. Like most of you are also acquainted with computers and artificial intelligence. I would say there may be many programs, but there has to be an operating system, right? So philosophical health is such kind of an operating system that makes remaining kinds of health, remaining kinds of knowledge possible. That is how philosophy is understood to be mother of all knowledge, because philosophy is basically any attempt by any of us to know something is philosophy. Okay, and in fact that reaching that fundamental nature is the journey of spirituality, right? So having said that, one of the important aspects of that the conference also addresses is how do you practice spirituality in life? No, that is a major concern. So is it that in order to practice spirituality, I have to abstain from all activity? I should not do anything? Is it that I should stop myself from doing everything and then keep quiet? Or is there any way while doing whatever I'm supposed to do, I can still practice spirituality? And this has been a very important question in most of the, in both the epics of India, like Ramayana and Mahabharata, and also in most of the Upanishads fundamentally. The prominent thing that comes forward is, even for us and for them, the classical Indian scholars as well, is that what to do. I'm in a particular given situation all the time. I'm in a particular given situation, and in that particular situation, what is it that I should do? What to do is very important. And how do I answer this question? Number one is I have to know what to do, and then I should be doing what I know to be doing. So how do I reach that is a very important aspect. In fact, Bhagavad Gita tells us that akrutyam naiva kartavya pranatyagopi samsthite nacha krutyam parityajyam yesha dharma sanatana. What is dharma is stated here. It says, don't do something that you are not supposed to do. And even at the cost of your own life, don't do something that you are not supposed to do. Never leave out something that is your kartavya, that you are supposed to do. No? All of us know what is kartavya. Kartavya is something that you are supposed to do. So never leave out something that is your own kartavya. And this is what is dharma according to Bhagavad Gita. So if that is the case, if what is this kartavya, what is it that I should do, is a very important question that disturbs us. And how do you know what is your duty and what is it that you are supposed to do? What is knowledge? This leads us to what is knowledge. And the methods of knowing oneself are stated in the classical Indian tradition so well. And following these methods is the one which leads us to the spirituality. For example, Advaita Vedanta tells us that it is vichara. No, vichara is inquiry into your own self. Okay. In order to inquire into the world outside, first you start with your own self, understand yourself in a better way, the best possible way, reaching out to what you are actually, in terms of moving step by step, saying that I am not the senses, I am not the mind, I am not even the consciousness, and then I am part of the larger consciousness. And this movement of understanding oneself to be one with the universal self is very important, which is stressed in Advaita Vedanta, which again leads us to this spirituality. See, the spiritual journey is basically, it has to begin with the self. You cannot begin by looking at the outside world. You have to begin with your own self. And while beginning with your own self, you have to reach all. I to we. See, basically West says, how do you reach the journey from I to you is very important for the West, okay, Western knowledge systems. But in Indian knowledge system, the movement is from I to we, okay, and I to all. In fact, I to we and I to all. It is not I to you, okay, from me to not you, okay. So this conception is very important. That is how we have in the classical Indian tradition concepts like sahavasa, sahakara, and sahabhoga. So which means all of us have to work together for the health of all of us, okay, that is sahakara. And then it leads to sahavasa, the coexistence, and this coexistence is the one which leads us, helps us in sahabhoga, enjoying together. No, happiness comes only when you enjoy together. If you are enjoying alone, you will never have that kind of the larger happiness that we talk about. So this is what is very important for us. And the second important aspect which has to be understood in order to practice spirituality is alignment, self-alignment. In order, if you want to practice spirituality, one of the important aspects is how do you align? There are three fundamental aspects of the individual when we try to answer the question of who am I, okay? What to do. These three fundamental aspects are manasa, vacha, and karmana. Okay, what you think in the mind, and what you speak, and what you do actually do in the world. Okay, so your thought, your word, and your action have to be aligned with each other. Only then, okay, that's the way to practice spirituality. So when you align your own thought, word, and action, then automatically this gets reflected in the world, and that is how you develop your own spiritual growth. So this alignment is very important, and once you achieve this alignment, automatically your biological, your biology, your psychology, and your cosmic nature, all of them also get aligned to each other. And this is the journey of spirituality, which is stated in the Indian philosophical tradition. So these are some of the thoughts that I thought I should share with you. And in fact, I am reminded of another important sloka from Bhagavad Gita, which tells us how to reach out to this Shanti, because I have been stressing the importance of peaceful coexistence. That is the end goal of all humanity. Bhagavad Gita says, Sreyo hi jnanam abhyasat, jnanat dhyanam visishyate, Dhyanat karmaphala tyagat shantiranantaram. So what is important is, of course, the practice, whatever you practice is very important. But more than practice, knowledge is important. If you don't have knowledge and merely practicing it, it's not really going to help you. So that is how practice is important. And knowledge is important. And it is not that you have to stop with knowledge. You have to go one step further and meditate on what you have known. No, that is how Advaitic tradition tells us, if you want to know something, there are three aspects of knowledge, knowing, the process of knowing. Sravanam, Mananam, Nitithyasa. You listen to it and then you repeat it in your mind so that it gets internalized, and then you meditate on it. It actually becomes one with your own self. So that is how jnanat, knowledge, mere knowledge is not important. Knowledge has to get transformed, internalized. And in the process, what is important is meditating on what you have known. And dhyanat karma phalatyagam. Once you achieve this, internalized your knowledge, then it has to lead to renouncing the fruits of the action. And this renouncing the fruits of the action is what actually is peace. So peace, concept of peace is defined in a wonderful way by telling us what to do in our everyday life schedules by Bhagavad Gita. And I hope these things would be useful to all of us in leading a happy life. Because all of us, whether you are a scientist or a philosopher or anybody, all of us, what we look forward to is happy life, good life, and also right kind of life. How do we reach that? Probably by making a spiritual journey. So begin your spiritual journey. It would definitely help and make the world a peaceful place for us and for future generations as well. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity given to me. And I really appreciate the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so very much, sir. As always, you delivered a very simple, very positive, and very informative talk. Thank you on the behalf of YCT and Shoolini University. Thank you so very much, sir. Uh, I believe, sir, we will take questions and we will share your email ID with the students if there would be any questions. So now may I request now the second last session. So for the to do the orders, may I first request Vivek sir, Khosla sir, and the speaker Dr. Basavaraddi sir to kindly occupy the seat there on the desk. May I request you, sir, to kindly come. So the last session and the speaker is Dr. I.V. Basavaraddi ji. He is the director of prestigious Morarji Desai National Institute of Yoga, New Delhi, under the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India, since 2005. He is also the head of Yoga Certification Board of Ministry of Yoga since 2018 and head of WHO CC for Traditional Medicine Yoga since 2013. He's a very renowned yoga scientist, a philosopher. He is recognized as one of the eminent yoga educationists and yoga expert of the country. We are very honored, sir, that you have accepted the invitation. And sir, may I request you to kindly start your talk. Over to you, sir.
Dr. Balganpati with us online. All the speakers, who is instrumental in the came all along to invite me, and all my esteemed friends in this gathering and also joining this webinar to various social media platforms. My pronouns to all. Today we are discussing celebrating very important topics. It starts with core is spirituality, but we are discussing about religion, the science, the philosophy, practices. Now, in the last session, we are going to discuss about mental health, holistic values. So these are the 5 important words. Even each one, even mental health, we can discuss ours together. But Mr. Vivek and Rachnaji, the visible guidance of Dr. Khosla, they have given a very eminent scholars. Really, I've been honored. After a long time, I'm sitting from morning to afternoon and listening to the many scholars. Even I organize in my school. Many times I don't get the time to listen to all my invited guests. But today I am very fortunate to listen to all of them. I do hope that you are also experienced the same. Before I begin, I congratulate the university for establishing the Yoga Center Theology, and also promoting yoga and reading the sciences, philosophies, and our culture, and producing the masters and the solutions who can use the knowledge and skills to the time. So I congratulate sir, my behalf and my ministry for teaching all this. Now coming to the point, being the last speaker, many things I would like to just remember that I was very impressed by Dr. Banerjee, lastly Dr. Balganpati, and many people spell out what I would like to or what actually I am thinking, and we are in line. But I am a person working in the Ayush ministry which takes care of health of the people of this country, indigenous systems of medical systems or healthcare delivery systems. So our approach to be practical. So let us begin. Me and we. What is our pravritti? What really we want in our life? The first question, what I want. Forget about the philosophical concept. Just ask your mind, what really you want? People is we want happiness, sukha. Sukha pravritti. What we don't want pain, suffering. That's why every human being the basic objective of, I use the word objective of life, is sukha pravritti, sukha. Am I right? Everybody wants happiness and nobody wants the pain or suffering. But Buddha says the sorrow or pain or suffering is following like a shadow. Sometimes the shadow becomes very narrow, sometimes it will end up Dukha prevails. Dukha coexists with us. So once we born, Dukha is perennial. The birth is painful. Living is painful. Death is painful. Our relationships are painful. But we are searching the happiness. This is the one philosophical question. But when you come to the happiness, what exactly? Suppose today we are really taking lunch at 1 o'clock, was delayed by half an hour. You are very youngster and half an hour you feel very hungry. So the thought is very good, but you are so hungry, your mind is diverted into simple. So that's why when it comes to this, there are 4 basic instincts every animal, not only man, every animal has. Ahara, Nidra, Bhaya, Maitri. Ahara, Nidra, Bhaya, Maitri. These are the basic instincts of every animal. But what is the difference of man and animal is we have a discrimination power. Man can analyze, decide, but the animal can. So if you are wrong, you are going wrong way, it leads to disease or it leads to the problem, physical problem. Later on we call it disorders or diseases. Even nowadays we are calling them as lifestyle disorders or non-communicable disorders like this because of wrong life. Therefore, so ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithunas, once you become adolescents, the sexual desires or these things are natural. All these things are very natural. So if you kindly see, look back and just manana. So if you eat well, digest well, absorb well, circulate well, and eliminate well, relax well, the entire metabolic process. Many times we are very, very happy. So ancient time it was not at all the issue because they were following along with the ritual. Then it comes the rest, the sleep. You are not getting good sleep, kindly see your behavior. I'm slowly coming to my point. So our mind and body are related, correlated. Therefore, all these things are having impact on our mind and various parts. The sleep makes the impact. Then once you become an adolescent, the sexual activity, over or under, also makes an impact. The fear, ultimately it is avinivesha, the fear of death, the fear of losing friends. So much of fear every day. So I'm getting late to my class. Consciousness. So I'm getting late. Sometimes the fear, the teacher may score. Sometimes fear that I don't score 99 points. Nowadays it's 100%. I don't get the medical seat or engineering seat. Every aspect we are under fear. So first of all, for mental well-being also, these are the 4 important dimensions of life called Bahiranga, external world or physical. So many times we are living in this world now. We may think, we may enjoy all these things, but when it comes to the material world, eating well, sleeping well, and having a healthy relationship, overcoming the fear, that is the fundamental for the material world. I don't think so. It is not the ultimate, but many times we ignore, but I found practical part. If you are ignoring, it's only small percentage of the people, larger percentage of people. So for this, we have practice. Once you've taken care of, then slowly you are going to the higher aspects of life, the mind. The mind. So if you see the mind, so mind has a dual nature. So according to the Sankhya, the theory of evolution, you can see the mind. So once it goes towards the outer world, the indriyas and tanmatras, etc., it's always flowing. And if it comes to inner side, sattvic side, it is ekagra. That's why you can see many times we don't feel that I had mind. I can feel, I can have emotions. That's called Patanjali says chitta. Chitta is the border term. I use the word moodamana. You are not aware what's happening. The morning Swamiji was saying, I am brushing, but I am not at all. That's called mood. Then it is slowly, it is chitta. Always it's moving from one object to another object, one subject to another subject. So why this wandering mind? Many times, sometimes, Dr. Banerjee touched that. So we born with certain ingredients, particular mother and father, the genes, what we are talking about. They are all scientifically, but in philosophy they are put it in a different manner. Prarabdha, Sanjita. So every individual is different. So accordingly, so the mind comes. Therefore, that is chitta. So our thought process also sometimes they are fast moving. Then slowly, if you have cultured it, it is quick chitta. Sometimes it's stabilized, and sometimes again it's wandered. For spiritual journey, it's not sufficient. What we need is ekagrity. And slowly go into the practice, it makes your mind stable. Mind stable. Patanjali, do one simple method that's called manage your prana, not breathe. Manage your prana. Orient your prana. So then you can orient your thoughts and emotions. So therefore, this is the way ekagra chitta, and it is for the material life. I can do better in my examination. I can do better in my family life. I can do better in the social life, workplace. It gives me pleasure. The honor gives me pleasure. The money gives me pleasure. Relationship gives me pleasure. So we all know that it's the worldly. They are temporary. So first of all, this is one. What we talk, the medical terminology, mental health, we are talking about only this. So cortisol, that, this, etc. Calm mind, relaxed mind. So one. But when it comes to the niruddha chitta, ekagra chitta and niruddha chitta, the last room. So then yoga begins there. It's not ending. Yoga begins there. So we are talking about now the science. So it's already Professor, my previous, very nicely explained given the definition. The science is empirical. We're experimenting. Especially the physical science, whatever we experiment here, the same is being experimented in the US or in the UK or in China. The same results we get. The vaccine works here and the same there. So science. But slowly, the empirical knowledge, once it's consolidated, then we go to the experience. This is the difference between the philosophy and understanding. So So one of the scholars is talking about the word we choose English words, they are not synonymous. So if you really study the philosophy and darshan of the word, doesn't make the real meaning of philosophy is not, darshan is not philosophy. Meditation in dhyana. Meditation in Western culture is different. Dhyana is a different process. There are several such words which found which we use in English, but reality in the Indian way, they are not complete. The meaning what it is. Therefore, once it is experiment, then experience. Then it is called mystic experience, called anubhava. So it is bahiranga, antaranga, antaratma. Antaranga, it is, I made it categorically, when it is antaranga, it is anthakarana, mano, buddhi, ahankara. Anthakarana. But antaratma, it goes beyond the prakriti. Evolutions of the prakriti, only the Purusha, the Chaitanya, Atma. Therefore, so once you go step by step for that, then I am in the state of that inquiry, spiritual inquiry. What is that spiritual? What I am? What is it? Here begins. Therefore, so all these things, where is our spiritual journey start? It starts with dhyana. It not ends with dhyana. Dhyana is the beginning. So before dhyana, there are three practices leading to dhyana. I am coming to the second point. So once I said experiment, then it is rational thinking is another philosophically. Today, new definition. The philosophical health also Professor had given in the previous lecture. So the experiment and experiencing it, then slowly it is entering into the very deep, becomes a mystic experience where we cannot show, but we can establish in that. So we can start our journey to the higher life. Because so we are finite. The truth is infinite. Simple thing. In the last lecture also I might have mentioned it. We are all finite. The ultimate reality, God consciousness. Why this question arises and slowly deviates from that. So in my childhood, I give one example. In the Shravana is auspicious month, holy month. So we used to have listened to the many Kirtan or Pravachana. So one of these, I am in a school, 4th standard or 5th standard, I was studying 5th standard. So the famous Pravachanakara was giving, he said that, oh, the God will come in the form of a beggar also. The child mind, we are searching for God. Why we are all the Indians or the Bharatavarsha? We are really searching. It is inherent. So in this part of it, spirituality is inherent. It is in our blood. But certain time it is very subtle. The word. Therefore, whenever we ignite, sometimes we need more energy. If it is very rigid, sometimes it is little bit, sometimes it is only a little bit more than enough to carry the part. So once it all that I want to see whenever the beggar comes, I want to pay some money or some food or something and seeing whether the God is helping me. So like this, every time one or the other aspect we are searching for the God, the ultimate reality. And there are different forms and concepts of God in the philosophy and theology. The personal God concept is there. Then Advaita, Brahman concept is there. Nirguna Brahma concept is there. Hudevata Vata is there. So many things are there. So what all these means, there are many forms. God is infinite. And we have a full freedom to choose. And every great person, the goal is the one, but when they narrate about the God, when they might have realized, but when they narrate to me or that, they use some means. What are the means? The buddhi or mana. That much of dilution. They use the language, that much of dilution. The ultimate truth or the God what I experienced may be the same by you or Professor. But when we narrate, we use our mind, we use our good. So again, they are the component of circle state. That much of dilution. So that's why the infinity, so whenever we are nearer to the perfection, that much simple thing. Whenever we are nearer to the perfection, that much nearer towards the godliness. Simple. So there are many parts. So come to the point. So then, what is the means? What is the beginning? Beginning is the mind. If you go to the WHO, mental health, so what is that? There are 4 important components in it. By exploring all the abilities of our mental facet, the cognitive functions, all these things that cope up with the stress. Then how I am using my all abilities, capabilities, and also I am becoming useful to the community, the society. Mental health or mental well-being is the 4 important aspects they have mentioned. So that means understanding my ability, coping up with stress, and delivering, and also how it happens. It happens in yoga is the means. Because I am a student of yoga, always I emphasize various forms of yoga. So therefore, in that one, it starts with only detoxification. Why? Once we born, you already occupy. Your ignorance. Everybody talks of it. That is the root clause. Later, avidya, Yuga, raga, dvesha, other things in the, but avidya is the cause. Then detoxification starts. How it starts? We want to have a purify the body. We go to the Shuddhikarna Kriya, that's karma. So you want to have the Shuddhikarna of your body, alignment of the body. Various asanas, Snaya Shuddhi, Hata Shuddhi. The process of Shuddhikarna. Why you want it? You want to align the prana, the life force, the electromagnetic force. So once you align, it connects. So now if it is a really science, the neuron, it has the emission like this. So that connects with the prana, connects with the mind. Therefore, the vagus, the nerve, the vagus, now the research are going on. That's an important aspect. That's why purify the body. Have a very healthy lifestyle. Orient your mind. How? By channelizing the energy. Left, right, and central one. When slowly that connects with the heart. That connects with the process. If anybody, medical students are there, they can understand the neuron and the vagus nerve importance, how it connects to the various activities of the brain and function. So that is the thing. So once mind becomes oriented, and slowly there to the action. Then it is go to the understanding the emotions. Emotions, how it is. So what are the emotions? Patanjali has given various methods in yoga. First one he has given abhyasa and vairagya. But most importantly, he has given 2, 3. One is chitta prasadana, maitri, karuna, mudito, pekshanam, sukha dukkha punya vichayanam, bhavana chitta prasadana. It's not only doing the Shuddhikarna Kriyas or the asanas or the pranayama. So I see someone who is better than me, especially my colleague getting the promotion above me, I become jealous. That's what he said. Someone is good, superior to you, and have a jealous. What for? To overcome this life. So like this, they have to be practiced. Maitri, Karuna. Even my enemy is in trouble, I should have a compassion. Not for what? For my mental health. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, the great people, Abdul Kalamji, all these really very, very preliminary. Whenever we saw, become Most importantly, the negative thought, negative people always around. What yoga says, neglect. So these are some of the fundamental principles given in yoga for the mental well-being. Then the most second one, there are another 6, this is the one sapta, Ekatattva Abhyas. At the end, I'll give a small from 2-3 minutes practice. Ekatattva Abhyas. Go on doing the pranayama. Go on doing thinking only one minute. The mind will calm down. Then you start observing your thoughts, your emotions, etc. Analyzing, savana, manana, nidhi. So what all these things mean, it makes us to realize what my body, how my body activity takes place, metabolism takes place. So that leads to the world. Then we enter into the inner world, antaratma sadhana. How it can be realized. So once we do karma. Now we have oriented mind, ekagra chitta, but how to go to the niruddha chitta? It's the kriya. So we have to do the actions without any fact. Karmanne vadhikarasya mahapali. So that's going to the holistic well-being answer. So you are oriented, but it's a holistic. Holistic means I am living in a society. So I am the individual, my family, my workplace, my community, my nation, the universe, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the Indian philosophical concept of living. So all these things, so the karma is most important. Most importantly, Gita explains your karma. Then that leads to, if you are oriented mind, that leads to the last time I said. So you start doing it devotion, ultimately devotion, without any expectation. So that's why there is a very small gap between the bhakti and karma. The spiritual masters you can see, I found in many great spiritual masters. So they are linking the bhakti and karma. So we don't know the God. Even go on inquiring, but you can feel anyone sitting before you as a God. The mind has imaginary power. It has a lot of power. It can expand like anything. Therefore, the unconditional love, the true love towards any individual, 100% is the God realization. But we never even do. We say our father, mother, teachers, but are you unconditional 100% to your so-called beloved teachers and father and mother? Anytime you go on inquiry. But how to devote and how to establish unconditional love so that I had a self-confidence, willpower. Yes, I can respond because I am leading towards it. That leads to the discrimination power, nitya, anitya vastu. So if you are overcoming all these things and bhakti karma, your day to day become a part of it. It's not to be practiced, it is established. Then start realizing what is truth, what is reality. Once you call that, jnana comes, and you are 100% always taking the step of going towards only the reality, then we are nearer to that. This journey, entire journey, what I am telling, including our nidra, bhaya, maitama, then leading towards the reality. In my opinion, entirely, it's a perfect journey, it's a spiritual. I am not ignoring my materialistic world, but I am systematizing it, regulating what for, to realize that I did. So I am not, whether I got it or not, but I am tense towards. Therefore, in the philosophy, always we used to say, searching for the truth means what? God. It's in the searching for a black cat in a dark room on the moisture day, which is not there. So what we perceive about God, God will not be there. And my God ever got the same we perceptualize also. Every individual perceive the God in their own manner, according to their mind. The old person may realize the same thing, but evolving persons can have different forms of God and God's life. Therefore, ultimately, this mental well-being, mental health, is the holistic well-being. What for? So I am useful for myself. First of all, I am useful for myself. I orientate my life, my lifestyle. I become less burden to the society. I less become to my family, my wife, my children. Nothing. I am not at all giving any problem to my organization. This is also spiritual. Then for the community, for the family and community and society and nation, I am a productive man. I am not a burden. First of all, this is the society I am talking about. So I am going with the nature as much as possible. How much we are going towards these truthfulness when we do the nature or that much we are mirrored to the God or the universal consciousness. This journey is, in my opinion, is spiritual journey. So there is a science because we are experimenting. There is a philosophy because we are thinking rationally. And there is a yoga, we are experiencing it. And we are going into the transcendental stage by continuing our experience into the highest. Ultimately, the lifelong journey, some may get very fast, some may get later on, but ultimately we reach to the, that is the goal of life, according to the philosophy or medium life. So, for all these things, I categorically the science, the philosophy, the religion, the yoga, we talk all these terminology may be different, but they have a connection. That's why the scholars may make the difference, but ordinary people mix up those things. I don't blame us because common people can think about it. The only thing is, yoga is the meaning. Various forms of yoga. So all these philosophical concepts also were being formed by the yogis only, because they did this in a supra-sensory, supra-intellectual pursuit. They are not use their mind or empirical knowledge. They not use their analytical knowledge. It is in yoga perception. The infinite states of consciousness. They realize the only thing is, once they put it in the paper, they transfer out in the word, they use their mind, the language. That much of dilution, my word. That much of dilution, that's why there are various forms of yoga, various forms of realizing the human reality. Therefore, my points, we're all youngsters, and my thing is, let us make as much as possible orderly. Let us try to be less burden to myself. Following the procedure. What is that? Awareness. Awareness what we do. Awareness of our breathing. Awareness what we talk. Awareness about what we act. This awareness reduces our mistake. Then once the purification process starts, maybe in the beginning it is very slow. Then it may be addition, it may be multiplication. Later on it will be exponential. At the end it is going to the exponential, reaching to the very fast to the end. It is in the beginning and we can do that. With these few words, once again, whatever the thoughts that come in my mind, I do hope that maybe it is a conclusive remarks also. I try to conclude with all other speakers also spoke about some of the aspects. This journey, don't make it complicated. Make it very simple, humble, and go on trying it. Never get bored. Never get these things. So putting effort always. End of the day, and you are just reward and be in the self. That is the real happiness. What is called as Ananda, the bliss. The blissful person has a light body, calm and quiet mind, controlled emotions, and always we do the actions in relaxation. But most importantly, is having the blissful awareness. Such bliss on a stressful for what all speakers want. That is the goal of life. That is the spirituality. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Hind. Om Tam Tat Tam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Basavaraddi. It was a brilliant lecture, very comprehensive yet short and sweet. From Dr. Balaganapati and Dr. Basavaraddi, we have learned some very practical aspects of spirituality today, how we can apply them in our own lives. I particularly like the fact that Dr. Basavaraddi mentioned that each aspect of our journey is spiritual. Everything is spiritual, ultimately. And even the mistakes we make, if I can add, ultimately lead us closer to the Almighty. Because the saint said there are three ways in which we approach the Almighty: suffering, service, and sadhana. Suffering also ultimately is caused by our own actions. Seva and sadhana, of course, is direct. But again, we have heard a lot of wonderful ideas. Ultimately, the universality of religion and the science of spirituality. Overall themes of the day. I'd like to thank all the speakers. Dr. Basavaraddi and Swami Anupamananji were with us here. Many speakers online. All of them I wish to thank. I wish to thank the organizing team. And we'll be, of course, having a valedictory and cultural program now, hoping that all of you will join us there. All the audience who have been present with us throughout the day. And Dr. P.K. Khosla, the Chancellor of Shoolini University, who is the patron of YCT. And he is the inspiration behind this YCT and its activity. Thank you, Dr. Khosla, for being here with us. And thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you everyone. May